Hi, in this video we're going to look in detail at one of the interaction patterns for AI augmented software development. That pattern is called extract prompt and it's available in the book Patterns in AI augmented software development that I'll link in the description below. That is a Creative Commons document that is free for you to read, so please do go and check it out. We're going to look at a pattern called extract prompt, when you would use it, the benefits of using it, and I'll show an example of how I use it in my development. So make sure you're hydrated. Put yourself on some background music. Let's get into it. Extract prompt is a pattern that you use to gain more control over how an agent does something. So if there's some overall task that you're trying to achieve and you're using a coding assistant to do this, and you notice that a step or a collection of steps in the overall workflow aren't going the way you want, you can use extract prompt to define that particular step in more detail. And this is also a benefit for context management because it lets you isolate that task from the others. That means that any information about the rest of the process that you're trying to get the agent to follow isn't in the context when it's completing this isolated task, this extracted prompt, and that the details from the extracted prompt aren't filling the context for the rest of the workflow. So if you notice that a particular part of the process, maybe it's debugging some generated code, or maybe it's analyzing test output, fills your agent's context, and then it starts to forget or fail to pay attention to information about its overall workflow or its overall task because there's so much information in the context about this particular step of the task, that's a good opportunity to extract prompt, because then the information about this particular step goes into an isolated context and you can use more tokens to describe how you want that piece of the work to be done, because that's only going to be relevant to the agent when it's doing that step, when it's working on this extracted prompt. Similarly, all of the details of how to perform that step aren't going to fill up the context of the other parts of the task you're trying to do because you've isolated them. So you get to have more relevant information about the different parts of your process. So it's a good idea to use extract prompt when a part of your process generates a lot of output. Then you get this benefit of isolating the tokens that are generated in that step and keeping them away from the context of the overall process that you're trying to work with the agent on, and avoid this kind of cross-contamination where too much information about detailed steps draws the agent's attention away from the overall goal that you're trying to achieve or from the other steps in the process. Examples include processes where you have to iteratively change a file. So the agent reads the context of the file, makes changes, performs some action, rereads the content of the file, makes more changes. All of those tool uses, reading and writing the files or searching and replacing the contents of the files, and whatever tools it's using to validate the file or to check whether it's done, all contribute to the model's context. They all take up token space, and the model has a sort of U-shape of attention to its context. It will pay more attention to the things that are in the beginning and the end of the context. Well, typically the beginning will be the system prompt, so that's the thing that the vendor or that you defined that describes the agent's role and high level goals, and the things that are most recent will be the output of the last task or the last file it read. As this context grows, this means that the bits in the middle, which include your user prompt, the thing that you actually tried to get it to do in the first place, and other information about the task, are going to become less relevant to the agent as it continues its process. Extracting prompt lets you take a lot of this information out and isolate it so that it can pay attention more to the overall instructions that you're giving it and to the task it's trying to achieve. Another example of a situation where you might want to use this is a test-driven development loop. You can extract prompts that precisely define how you want it to create the tests, run the tests, understand the output, or at least inspect and respond to the output and change the code. Or generating diagrams if you use a text-based diagram format like Mermaid or Plant.uml, because that will involve a lot of generating text, seeing whether the text works in the tool, and then modifying the text. Testing out APIs is another good example. If you are writing code or working with the agent to generate code that explores how an API works, you'll end up with a lot of request response cycles, and gradually these will fill up your agent's context. These are all good situations in which to extract prompt. Now, the full description of the pattern, including an example of how to use it for TDD, are included in the link that's in the video description. But let's have a look at another example. So here we go. Okay, so I want to write an app that I'm calling Research Buddy, which is a Mac application for writing notes on the various papers and books that I read while I'm understanding LLMs and software engineering and trying to fit them into context. So I'm going to start by taking baby steps. Baby steps is another pattern in the pattern language, and it's one that at the time this video is being recorded isn't available yet. It will be available first to subscribers to the Chiron Codex Patreon. So please do go and check out the Patreon if you're interested in getting early access to these pattern descriptions. So I'm taking baby steps. I don't want to prompt the agent to just write the whole app, because I don't think that's going to work very well. I'm going to take a particular aspect of the application as I want and see where we can get with that. So here's my initial prompt. Create an app that lets someone open a PDF document using file open. When the person chooses a PDF file, open it in a window that has two panes, the PDF document on the left and a rich text editor on the right. The PDF should be sized so that a page fits within the width of the pane that contains the PDF view. The person uses the left pane to scroll through the PDF and the right pane to take notes. The two panes need to be of equal width. The initial size of the window should allow each pane to be 500 pixels wide and 750 pixels tall. So this is going to be kind of the core of my note-taking experience. I'll be able to read a paper in one pane of a window and write notes on it on another pane. So that's my initial prompt to the agent. Let's have a look at what it's done. Well, it's decided it wants to use NS Open Panel to choose the file. That is going to work, but it's an odd choice because that is from the AppKit framework, and you can see that the model is using SwiftUI for the overall view lifecycle management in this app. So why didn't it choose a SwiftUI view here? It's going to use PDFKit to display the PDF document, and that makes sense. It wants a rich text editor, a split view to host these two panes, that sounds good. and it's going to set the window to the initial size. Well, I didn't say anything about how resizing the window would work. That's part of taking the baby steps, so we'll look into that later. So let's have a look at what it's done. It's created this application that has the selected file URL and the PDF document and a content view. And we can see already that there's compiler errors here. And so the SwiftUI preview pane isn't going to be able to show us anything because the application won't compile. There is the error. What's it done? It's used this display page break separators API that doesn't exist. So it's hallucinated this method on the PDF view. And it's done the same down here, used these scroll elasticity methods that apparently don't exist on the text view. And again, an awkward choice of using an NS text view as a rich text editor when there is a SwiftUI component and NS text view is part of AppKit. Then we've got an NS Open panel here. Again, as I said, this is an AppKit view and we're in a SwiftUI app. The menu is using the SwiftUI menu type, not the AppKit NS menu. And then it's created the commands for creating a new item and importing or exporting. Okay, so I can see that there are two things I want to change here. I mean, fundamentally what I want to do is I want to fix the build errors. And using this UI, I could prompt the model with the error text and just say generate a fix for this error for every one of the errors. But I can see that the errors fit into a pattern where the model has generated function calls to methods that don't exist. So with that understanding of the category of error that's being made, I want to write an extracted prompt that is going to be my API checker, and it's going to say, okay, look at this generated Swift and create Swift code that only calls APIs that exist. So that's where we're going with this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need to add extra instructions on how to generate correct Swift code that uses the platform APIs correctly. I don't want to put all of this detail into my prompt that describes the app that I'm trying to build, and that's mostly for like my convenience, because I know that I'm going to need to get it to generate other code, and I'm going to want it to repeatedly do this step of making sure it's using the right API. So I don't want to have to type this into every single prompt or like keep it somewhere that I paste into every prompt. But it's also going to have the benefit that it checking what APIs to use isn't going to fill up the context when it's trying to design a view based on the prompt I give it, or trying to implement some method that I prompt it for. So I'm going to create a new conversation with the DevSmall 2 model running locally on this Mac. And I'm going to give it the extracted prompt that just tells it what I expect from the Swift code that the model generates. So here's my prompt. You're an experienced Swift programmer with expertise at choosing appropriate APIs to use for a given platform. Now, this kind of sounds a little bit kind of sycophantic, saying like, hey, you're experienced, you're an expert. But it does help. And the sort of theory behind why it helps is that this kind of description of the tool's role associates the output it generates with information in the training data that is related to expertise that the task I describe. If I say you're an expert tester, then it will more readily select sequences from the training data that are related to testing expertise and so on. So by saying you're an experienced Swift programmer with expertise at choosing the right APIs, that is biasing it towards sequences in its training data that are related to that expertise and to that experience. So, review the code in this app for situations where the programmer tried to use methods that don't exist in the platform SDK. When you find a situation where the code calls a non-existent method, determine whether there's an alternative API that does exist in the SDK and that does what the programmer is trying to achieve. If there is, replace the non-existent method call with the real one. If you can't find an alternative, remove the problematic method call and report it to the programmer so that they can choose an alternative approach. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to avoid the problem of like cyclic hallucination, where it goes, well, that method doesn't exist. I don't know what the real method is. I'll just make up another one. I'm giving it the notion in the prompt that failure is success, that not knowing what to do is a valid outcome and that it has a task to complete, because these models exhibit what's called completion bias. They strive to do whatever they were asked, whether or not that is actually possible within the limitations of the language model's capabilities, the like data that they have to base their output on. So by saying, if there isn't an alternative, report that there is no alternative, I'm giving the model the chance to succeed in the situation where it cannot generate valid output, so that it doesn't try to generate invalid output instead. And then I'm going to give an example, and this is an example that does solve one of the problems that's really in this app, one of the non-existent APIs. It turns this prompt away from a zero-shot prompt, effectively into a few-shot prompt, but there's only one example here. But that means that the model has an example of what it should do in the situation where there is really an alternative API. So I say, for example, the programmer provides code that contains this API call, which is the displays page break separators one that you can see here. PDF view doesn't have that method. The way to display page breaks is to call this other method. You replace the erroneous method call with the correct one. So it's got an example of what to do. It doesn't cover all of the things. I haven't just like fixed all of the problems in text and then got an agent to fix them. Like, you know, I could have done all of that myself. What I'm trying to do here is to create a prompt that, yes, it solves this problem partially through me having described what the solution is to the agent, but then I get a reusable prompt out of it that will fix other issues that we encounter in the future. I also have the opportunity to save this as this prompt as a system prompt for a sub-agent in tools that support sub-agents, so that I could interact with my coding assistant and say, hey, I need you to like generate some Swift that does this thing. Use this sub-agent to validate that you are calling the platform APIs correctly, and then it will go and automatically run this check on all of the code it generates. Let's see how this works. The dev small 2 model is relatively fast and actually not too like poor at performing. Its performance is very close to the large DevStral 2 model, and it's much quicker at responding. So it's looked at the errors. Those are included in the prompt by Xcode, and it knows, it's read those and it's discovered that those represent missing APIs. It's found the PDF view error that was also described in the prompt. And there are actually multiple errors on the scroll elasticity lines, because where the compiler couldn't find a method it was trying to call, it also couldn't work out what enumeration the parameters this error was supposed to be from either. So it thinks that the changes were already applied. This isn't true because the error is not there, is still there. And these errors are still present, so that hasn't worked. Let's see if we can get it to actually read the file. So obviously there was some problem there with the way that the Xcode interface for the agent is keeping the project information in sync in the agent. So it needed to read the file again to discover that this error hadn't been fixed. But now that it has done so, it has decided that it couldn't fix these problems, and it has commented them out, and it has correctly fixed this other one. So that's a reusable prompt that I can go and use in other contexts. I'll be interested to hear your experience with extract prompt. Are you using it now that you have seen what it is? Were you already doing this thing? And it wouldn't be surprising if you are, because these interaction patterns do capture common interactions that represent solutions to problems that we all have. So you may well have been using what I'm calling the extract prompt pattern long before I gave it that name and shared this description. If you did, I'd love to hear how you're doing it, what other common solutions you have to problems. Even better than just telling me about these things is telling the rest of the community, so that we can all share this knowledge and become software engineering centaurs together. You can comment on this video, you can join the Patreon as a free member and join the community there and discuss these patterns, or if you support the project by becoming a paid member, A, you get a lot of gratitude from me, and B, you get early access to the pattern descriptions as I make them available. Of course, I'm going to ask you to please like and subscribe. That's how the platform algorithms get information that helps them to recommend this content to other people, so they learn about these patterns as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.